Fam, what's going on? It is Kyle Henderson of Bama Football on YouTube. I appreciate you guys being here for tonight's college football playoff talk. Thank you so much for joining the show tonight. Tonight is Tuesday, November 19th. Let me know where you're watching from inside the comment box. Let's go full screen right now to the bracket. We're not going to make you wait for the bracket to be released. It's so hilarious how they do it on ESPN. All right, so what we have right here, sound off in the comment box. You have Boise State, who is ranked on the left as the number 12 team from the group of five, currently having a bye to the quarterfinals, right? Playing in the New Year's Six, hosting BYU or Ohio State. Like, that is absolutely wild, right? That's the first thing that certainly stands out to me. Okay. Now, you also have Alabama, who would be on the road playing at Notre Dame, right, in South Bend. And that's I think I showcased that recently, right? If you guys are joining me, I appreciate you guys. Definitely check in here. What's going on? So Alabama going to South Bend in this predicted rankings, right? And then the winner would go play Oregon New Year's Six game, right? And you know what's interesting, Jarvis? So they have them at number 7 in the rankings, but based on how they shake out in the playoff seedings, they would be on the road at South Bend. See what I'm saying? All right, so you look at number 11, which is Georgia. They'd be playing Penn State in the current rankings, right? The winner would be playing number 8, Miami. It's wild to see, how they put out these rankings, because they put the rankings and then they try to put them into the playoffs. That's where I see the flawed system. If you're going to have the teams go off the rankings on the left, right, and just put them in rather than having to go off the conference champions. Because if you were to go off the left, Oregon, Ohio State, Texans, and Penn State, I guess we'd be complaining that the big conference had all the teams in the quarterfinals anyways, right? And then in seeds 10 and 7, that would be Ole Miss would be traveling to play Indiana, and then the winner would be playing Texas. So, let's dive into it. Let's talk a little bit about it. I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much for joining me on tonight's playoff show. It's been a busy day, right? We had the morning show, and then Keanu Coate going into the transfer portal. We talked about that news as it happened, and right now we're talking about the college football playoffs. This is the time where we are busy. This is the time where we do talk college football playoffs and kind of the implications of the game. So, T, how are we on those slides? Are we almost ready for the slides?
Yeah, almost ready.
All right, appreciate it. So I think how do you guys feel? And I'll let everybody still get checked in. I know these pop-up shows just happened. What's going on, Jack? I appreciate you being here. How do you guys feel about Boise State right now hosting a quarterfinal game? That's one of the biggest things. Like, Jarvis, I always like to go to you. What are your thoughts? Because when you have a group of 5 now getting a quarterfinal bye, like, man, I'm not having it. And I think that one of the biggest discrepancies for me is the conference play, right? Like, yeah, you've had an amazing season, but as you could see to the left, you're ranked number 12, okay? And I told you earlier today that I felt that Tennessee would be the first team left out. And there you have it. That goes to show me, don't lose late in the season or else you're going to be punished. I bet you Tennessee right now, if we were to go to VolQuest and we were to look at their message board, I bet you they would be absolutely livid that they are out of the playoffs and you have Alabama in the playoffs. And how are you going to rank those teams, right? I think you have to have them all into the playoffs, but who are you going to kick out? Now, the thing is, when we start to look at who teams play next, and we're going to show a graphic in just a second, who you have remaining, I think it should shake out, and I wouldn't be surprised if a team like Indiana is the team that gets pushed out and Tennessee gets pushed in. Because the thing with Indiana, and we'll showcase this in a minute, Indiana has not played anybody this season. They have basically a one-game playoff season, which is this coming weekend against Ohio State, where they are a 12-point underdog to beat the Buckeyes in Columbus. It's not going to happen, okay? You can save it. You can keep the receipts. Indiana is not going to beat the Ohio State Buckeyes. All right, then you go to a team like Penn State, Well, Penn State, they've played a lighthearted schedule. They had an opportunity to beat Ohio State at their own house in front of 120,000 or whatever they boast about. James Franklin and crew could not get it done, but yet they are still being rewarded. The thing about this bracket right here that we're looking at is the fact that the committee is showcasing to us that they value a light schedule, maybe a quality win or so, but that's it. What they are not, what they are telling us that if you play in a gauntlet of a league like the SEC is being punished. Seriously, if you just join the SEC, or if you're in the SEC, look, do you want to be here? Yeah, you want to be here from the competitive balance, but even listening to Lane Kiffin today, he was like, I have talked to coaches that don't even want to play in the SEC championship game because it's basically another playoff type game where if you lose, you could get kicked out. Right? And I know I've heard some arguments about that the SEC is not going to take the SEC runner-up. Well, if there's a four-way tie for the runner-up position and they've all beat each other, right? And Tennessee has a better record than Alabama at the end of the season, and Tennessee has, they can say, we beat you head-to-head and we tied for the SEC title game, for the SEC number 2. Who's to say they can't get kicked out, right? Yeah, this is officially it, Ricky. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. We're going to look at some graphics in just a second and look who the teams have to play on the back end of the season. Let me ask you this. Which team? I mean, you have Boise State. You have Miami in here. Miami lost to Georgia Tech. Boise State has a loss on the season, right? Oregon's undefeated. Texas has a loss to Georgia. Let's just look at seeds. And I would imagine still, when you look at this graphic, I would be curious to see if Colorado could somehow continue to climb the ladder and beat BYU. Would they be at that 12 spot? Or would they put the Big 12 champ at the number 4 and kind of reset Boise State up to that 12 spot? Right? A lot to go over. I know. It does get confusing, but who are the pretenders? Let's go ahead and list the pretenders. I always like to do contenders and pretenders. All right. BYU, type P for pretender, type C for contender. This should be easy to do. P for pretender, C for contender with BYU. And what would the line be for Ohio State and BYU? Honestly, I think that Ohio State, the game at the Big House in Columbus, I think Ohio State would beat BYU by, 14, 21 points, right? So BYU, we're going to list them as a pretender, right? Notre Dame. Big Bed, what's up, man? Appreciate you. Adam Wood. Adam saying P, Jarvis saying P, right? That's too easy. Okay, how about this one? Notre Dame. Is Notre Dame, honestly, okay, I want to know if there's someone out there that thinks that Notre Dame is a quality team, they believe in the Fighting Irish. Look, I grew up watching Notre Dame. I did. It was part of my house. But this is a pretender, all right? They lost to Northern Illinois. Who was their quality win against? Texas A&M, I guess, on the road? What else have they done? They beat up on Navy, probably beat up on Army, but what else? They figured out a way to get in the playoffs by playing a light schedule and avoiding staying in the conference. That's what Notre Dame learned to do. So Notre Dame hosting Alabama, I'll tell you what, if you're an Alabama football fan and you see that you have to go to South Bend, number one, you're like, perfect. This is on my college football bucket list to go to South Bend, right? You get to go up there to that amazing college football atmosphere. I think Alabama would do whatever they wanted to against Notre Dame. Notre Dame would have so much trouble stopping Alabama's offense, it wouldn't be funny. And then depending on where this New Year's Six game fell between Oregon and Alabama, you got to like Alabama's chances, considering the fact that Dan Lanning has never beat Kalen DeBoer head-to-head. So if you look at this playoff bracket right here, it bodes well for Alabama. So it's almost like an Alabama versus Ohio State up at the top of the semifinals. Down at the bottom, if I'm Georgia, I like where I'm at too. You have Georgia versus Penn State. Take Georgia every single day of the week. Georgia versus Miami. Are you kidding me? Georgia, of course, you got Georgia in the semifinals. And then down at the bottom, Ole Miss over Indiana. Ole Miss and Texas, oh my goodness, I hope that game happens. Lane Kiffin versus Steve Sarkisian. Who you got? That was like must-watch TV. would be Ole Miss versus Texas. Give me Texas, and then Texas versus Georgia in a rematch, and then up top you have in the semifinals Ohio State and Bama. Give me Bama versus Georgia in the national title game. Okay, it's out right, Poison. Tier, how are we looking on the graphics? All right, cool. So we're looking at the graphics right now. Here's the college football rankings as it sits, and these are the teams that they have to play coming up next. It doesn't include the title game. So maybe, T, what we could do on Oregon, since if they win that game, we'll say then the big championship, right? That's what they call it, the big. So you have Oregon, who's taking on Washington up at the top. You have number 2, Ohio State. And these are how the teams that are ranked. Now, the rankings are completely different from the seedings. I know. I'll walk you through it. And then you have Ohio State, who has Indiana, who is undefeated. And then they have Michigan. Should they win those 2 games, they are playing Oregon in the big championship as well. Number 3, Texas. You got a game against Kentucky, and then you're on the road against Texas A&M. I would imagine that they beat, Kentucky played Georgia Kentucky should have beat Georgia. They should have. They didn't. And Georgia beat Texas. I'm just saying, SEC's crazy. And who knows? There could be rat poison. Although, did you hear Mike Elko today of Texas A&M? So today they asked him. I got T in the house. So they asked Mike Elko, the head football coach at Texas A&M. They were like, talking about rat poison, blocking out the noise, all this stuff. And he's like, yeah, we have to completely just block out all the noise, and we're completely focusing on Texas. Well, guess who they play this weekend? Auburn. And he was like, I mean Auburn. So, he might be looking ahead. That's what that tells me. Penn State, Minnesota and Maryland, I don't know. Give me Coach Loxley at the end to beat Penn State. It might be a stretch, but who knows. Indiana, again, 1-game season to beat Ohio State, and then Purdue. I'd have to do – okay, if Indiana – loses to Ohio State. Okay, well, there it would go. It would be Ohio State and Oregon. If Oregon wins out, if they can beat Michigan up at the top, it'd be Oregon and Ohio State in a rematch. What's up, everybody? I appreciate you guys being here, all 87 of you. Notre Dame, next they got Army and then USC, which is, Army's been playing some good football. They'll be Army up and down. And then USC, who knows? Sometimes that's a rivalry game. Alabama at the number 7 spot. Next up, Oklahoma, and then Auburn. Now, you're on the road at Oklahoma, a 2-touchdown favorite against the Sooners, and a 2-touchdown favorite against your biggest rival, the Auburn Tigers. Now, each of those games is scary for different reasons. Number 1, going on the road in SEC play is challenging. I don't care where you're going, right? All the games on the road outside of Baton Rouge, playing LSU, have been difficult. And then playing Auburn, we've talked about this. Hugh Freeze, late in the season, Iron Bowl, it's always strange, okay? Miami. Next up, Wake Forest, and then Syracuse. I don't know. Is there anyone inside the comment box that thinks that somehow Syracuse could beat Miami? Is that too much of a stretch? Does anyone have Syracuse beating Miami? I don't know. It seems like a stretch, but I don't know. It seems like Miami kind of has that cardiac on the back. They're able to play well, like when the game's on the line. The quarterback's absolutely the truth. Cam Ward, 100%. Ricky Smith is taking Army, or at least saying Army can't upset Notre Dame. I think people are going to say Miami, but we see what happened is people know that Miami is a pretender. I think the contenders on here, at least on this board, I guess Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, and Alabama. The pretenders, Penn State, Indiana, Notre Dame, and Miami. 4-on-4. I take Alabama against, I think, all those teams. For whatever reason, I think Ohio State is probably better than they are. I don't know. It just seems like that's one of the teams just based on their skill set. But Ryan Day's another guy who doesn't win big games. Jack is saying, I think Syracuse could beat Miami all day. See, I was kind of feeling the same thing. The only thing that scared me is about Kyle McCord when he threw, like 5 interceptions against Pittsburgh. And Army 3275 says Army doesn't have the horses to compete, in my opinion. I agree. All right. Here's next in line. Teams next in line. You have Boise State. They still have Wyoming. Oh, and I think we need Georgia on here too, T. So Boise State, They have Wyoming and Oregon State. Sometimes Oregon State can be weird on the back end. BYU takes on Arizona State and Houston. I think they'll get past those two. Tennessee has UTEP. They're playing UTEP. And then they go to Vegas to play Vanderbilt. Look, if I'm in Nashville that weekend, I'm definitely going to watch that game. Tennessee versus Vanderbilt, that should be entertaining. I mean, Vanderbilt still has pride and performance to play for. And we have Ole Miss and Georgia coming up here in just a second. I'll go back and look at the bracket overall in case you're just checking in. You're like, what? The bracket was released? Yeah, so this is the official bracket, how the college football playoff rankings, they just released these on ESPN. They're at different times each Tuesday, usually between that 6 to 8 window based on their ESPN programming. Yeah, I know. You know what's crazy? Imagine being Texas A&M. Michael's coming in. You imagine being currently – talk about a slap in the face. Think about this. No, I'm serious. Think about this. Think about being a Texas A&M fan right now. You've had this amazing season under first-year coach Mike Elko. You're number one, at least tied for number one in SEC play. And when the rankings come out, right, you're not even listed on the board. Not even listed on the board. Like, that is wild. I'm checking their football schedule right now. I would love to go over the message board and see what they're saying. So they're 8-2 overall, and they have that loss against South Carolina, and that's really, you can't lose 44 to what was it, 42 to 20, whatever. South Carolina, that's a team that nobody wants to tangle with too. I wouldn't want to play them again if I'm Alabama. South Carolina is a really good team. I think South Carolina would beat Boise. I think they'd beat BYU. I think that South Carolina would beat Penn State. I think that South Carolina would beat Indiana. I really do. So right now, as it holds, Texas A&M just has one loss in the SEC, tied with Texas. Their one loss is, of course, to Georgia. Run the Table Sports, what's up, man? Saying don't sleep on Indiana beating Ohio State. They barely squeezed by Nebraska. Indiana beat Nebraska 57-6. The other thing, too, when you look at the Big Ten is like, I get it. You can't always look at, compare the scores. But what was up with Oregon just beating Wisconsin? Like, how come Oregon isn't punished for that? You get what I'm saying? Imagine in this world that we live in. That's why, what's crazy? Alabama's going to a 2-touchdown favorite against Oklahoma. If this game is close against Oklahoma and they win 31-20, they could drop in the rankings. They're always held to a different standard. It's weird. Nobody's even. They might have hit on it. I'm not watching ESPN right now, obviously, but. How come Oregon doesn't get punished? Strange. We'll look at these other graphics. We got Georgia, and I think we had Ole Miss to look at right here. So you got Ole Miss, and then we could put maybe the rankings by them, where they're at. So you got Ole Miss, next up Florida and Mississippi State. Those are some. I guess the game against Florida is interesting. Florida's been playing a little bit better on the back end, and then Georgia takes on UMass and Georgia Tech. So, they just basically have to stay healthy in those games and hope for Missouri, I guess, to lose their next two, right? And then you have Boise State taking on Wyoming and Oregon State, and then BYU taking on Arizona and Houston, and Tennessee taking on UTEP and Vandy, and then SMU taking on Virginia and California. And I think if you wanted to add Colorado there at the bottom, that's another team that I'm watching. You have Colorado, and they take on Kansas, and then they take on Oklahoma State. And the reason I put up Colorado on here is because Colorado is, trying to make a late run for this Big 12 title. Okay. And Jarvis, I'm with you. I think that Alabama certainly has to have style points. I do. They have Kansas and then they have Oklahoma State. All right, what I want to do, I just want to ask you, okay, let's play some rat poison here. I think so too, run the table. I think that Colorado wins the Big 12. I think that they will be the number 4 team in the playoffs. I really do. Okay, so looking at this graphic right here, this is official of tonight, as of tonight, from the college football playoff rankings. Which team, pick 4 teams, who are your 4 teams in the semifinals? T, if you could write mine. Give me Ohio State. Give me Bama. Give me Georgia. And give me Ole Miss. Yeah, give me Ole Miss. Yeah, and cyber guns like this won't be how it plays out. I 100% agree. I think it'll really be Colorado as a number 4 if they win the Big 12. And then, who's to say? And think about this. If Alabama wins the SEC title, they would be the number 2 team. And you got to shift some things around, right? Texas probably goes to, 6 or something like that. And you got to think Indiana, they'll probably drop significantly if they lose. At least they'd be on the road in the first round. Now, one thing that I have to say is this confused me as well. The more I learn about the college playoff bracket, number 1, the group of 5, like a team from the Mountain West, they make the playoffs as well. And as you can see, they can receive a bye. Now, I was under the impression when I first started looking at the playoffs like a couple weeks ago that the quarterfinal games were also at the home sites. So that's not the case. The quarterfinals are the New Year's 6 games. So those are bowl games. So the only games that are at the host site of the universities are in the first round. And those would be hosted by seeds 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then the semifinals would be the other part of the bowl games and then the title game. So let's see. Kimberly has Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia, Ohio State. Yeah. J-Bake has Ohio State, Bama, Georgia, and Indiana. Ole Miss running through the 2 SEC teams. That'd be crazy. That'd be something for Indiana, not play a top 25 team all year and then catch fire late. Beat Ohio State. Beat Oregon. No, who's to say where Indiana would be if they, if they make a late run. I don't think they will. What surprises you most on this bracket? I think the easiest question is the easiest answer is number 4, Boise State, right?
What are they doing?
Yeah. Yeah, Boise State. Well, see, someone from the Big 12 has to be in there. That's why I think what we'll learn from these data points of the college football playoff rankings is that we've always known this, but all the conferences are not the same.
Do you think they'll eventually eliminate conference championships?
That's a damn good question. I mean, because you know what? That's a really good question. Look, having this format, it kind of reminds me of almost like if you follow the Champions League, like in soccer, or if you follow like the World Cup, there's certain, what the World Cup does? They know the teams from Europe are much better than the teams from, the other countries in, let's say, like Africa or in kind of this like Southeast Asia. So they get a certain amount of teams. That would be the same premise that you would have here, is that the SEC carries more weight.
Like an electoral college.
It'd be like that. The SEC, it carries weight. It does.
Yeah.
And Ricky Smith brings up a damn good point. He's like, maybe we should change our schedule. Not a bad idea. Right. I mean, you are playing, an FBS team to open up the season, right? Or the FCS in Florida State, right? Well, next year it'll work out perfect because you're playing Florida State. Florida State is dropping down next year. They're going to be FCS next year. All right, so Bama ranked. Yeah, so and this is weird. So in one area you're like, yeah, Bama's ranked number 7. Oh crap, we're on the road at number 9. Do you get what I'm saying? So the rankings are on the left right here. These are the rankings, and then these are the seedings. So do you get happy that Alabama's 7th, or do you get bummed that they're on the road against Notre Dame?
I like Notre Dame.
Oh, I would love for Notre Dame and Alabama to play each other. 100%. The most interesting matchup, I guess, in the second round. I know. Thank you, GSP. He's like, that bracket is useless. Yeah. GSP is like, I don't even know why they put that stupid bracket up. They know Indiana or Ohio State is going to have a loss. 100%. Yeah. This is why Coach Saban would get so mad when you asked him about this, or he would, because he didn't even watch it. He was like, "This is make believe." Mm-hmm. Like this is Charlie Brown right here. All this is made up. But it's like, it's fun to look at. The good thing is Bama is moving up, but they still have Bama on the road. What will happen? I'm going to tell you what will happen, okay? Bama takes care of business against Oklahoma. They take care of business against Auburn. They will continue to move up. If they win the SEC championship game, then so be it. You heard Tyler Booker say, we 100% want to be in the SEC championship game, and they want to win that game. They are competitors at the highest level, right? So I would assume that if Alabama wins the SEC title, they're either at the number 1 spot or the number 2 spot. And then, they'll be the home team in the quarterfinals. And they'll have that extra week, which I think will be great. Although I do like when Alabama, what scares me is kind of having that open week to the rest week. Because if you play in the first round, you have momentum. I say this all the time if you watch my shows. If Alabama plays Michigan after Georgia, they win the national championship game. With that said, this team has performed pretty well after open weeks. Look how they performed against Georgia, right? And look how they performed against LSU. So can you imagine them in the quarterfinals? That would probably work out really well for them. And Run the Table Sports, that's interesting because people have been talking about this. And at one point, and even Lane Kiffin today on his press conference said that he's talked to other coaches that don't want to play in the SEC title game because they think that they'll be penalized if they were to lose that game. I mean, let's face it. That's almost like another national championship type game. No one's scared of competition. Look what's happening to Tennessee right now. Tennessee is being penalized for losing late. Even the king of college football, Josh Pate, had Tennessee in his bracket. And he said that those are the teams that deserve to be in the playoffs. I just think that it would, and I agree with that, but I do think since you don't have a true number 2 because of all the teams that tied to get into the SEC championship game, that they would kick Alabama out if Alabama doesn't win the SEC championship. Do you get my reasoning? Because where's my graphic? This is the graphic that I have for the SEC football standings right now. Let me get to it. Okay, so could they leave the SEC number 2 out? Now, if Alabama wins out, right, this is how it would look out. If Texas wins, they finish 7-1. If Alabama wins out, they finish 6-2. If Georgia finishes out 6-2, A&M 6-2, Ole Miss 6-2, Tennessee 6-2. So, do you hear my point? There's no true number 2 team. The only number 2 in the SEC was decided based off criteria that is not part of the playoff committee. This is off the SEC championship rules. Right. Do you get what I'm saying?
It's like when Alabama and LSU were 1 and 2 playing each other in the SEC.
Yeah. So my point is, if Alabama, so you could theoretically say there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams that tied for number 2 in the SEC, and Alabama just got, based off their schedule and the tiebreakers, they were to play in the SEC title game. And if they lose that game, then who's to say that the playoff committee wouldn't be like, well, after heavy deliberation, we figured that since there was 5 teams that had a 6-2 record, and Alabama lost late and has more losses than each of these teams, we're going to take Tennessee because Tennessee beat Alabama head-to-head, and they finished with a 10-2 record, which is a better winning percentage than Alabama has. Do you see what I'm saying? Am I making sense? Like, if there was a true number 2, then I don't think there's any way they could leave out the SEC runner-up. But in this case, since there's a 5-way tie, I think they could.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what's going to happen. But there will be chaos, and there's going to be an SEC. Can you imagine? Look at Texas A&M right now. They're predicted to go. Talk about people, hating on A&M. People are predicting them to lose here to Texas. They don't even have them on the board in the playoff. Where's A&M ranked? So in the AP, A&M is ranked 15th. And then in our little fake bracket that the committee just released, what is A&M ranked? No one even knows. Think about that. Nobody even knows where A&M is. So here's the bracket one more time. Hey, Braden, what's up, man? Braden asks, why is everybody acting like Oklahoma is good? Plus they have lots of... No, you know what? I said this on my morning show. Yeah, KTK, we'll take calls tomorrow. I've already eaten the rat poison. I ate as much rat poison as you could possibly eat. I think that Alabama is going to absolutely beat the brakes off Oklahoma. I really do. A couple reasons why. Number one, Oklahoma has allowed 41 sacks this year, which ranks dead last in college football. Right? Number two, Alabama understands that back is against the wall. Alabama is starting to become like a buzzsaw. Christopher, 100%. I take Notre Dame all day long, especially at South Bend. That's like a bucket list type game. Lance is taking Florida to beat Ole Miss. That would be interesting. Drewski saying that this system is straight ridiculous. Timothy, what's up, man? Saying SMU should be 3, not Miami. That's another team that's being disrespected is SMU, to be honest. But they love pumping Miami. I think it's because of Cam Ward. Run the Table Sports has Alabama 49, Oklahoma 17. I think I have it like 45 to, 3. Alabama has allowed just 2 touchdowns in the last 12 quarters. Alabama's defense has forced 24 turnovers this season, which is 3rd in college football. And how many in the last 3 games? Like 15 or something like that? I don't like the bracket right now. I don't, but this is where we're at. Jack's like, how do you stop Milroe? You can't. I had a video talking about Milroe today. I mean, the guy is thrown for 2,200 yards. He's rushed for over 600 yards. That's number 1 on the team. He has 120 carries. That's the most on the team. He has 15 passing touchdowns, most on the team. 17 rushing touchdowns, most on the team. And people are like, the offense isn't all Jalen Milroe. Like, who else is it?
Alabama has allowed 2 field goals and 2 touchdowns in the last 3.
Yeah, 2 field goals and yeah. I don't think Oklahoma. I would imagine that Jahar Campbell eats this weekend against Oklahoma. The interior pass rush is phenomenal. And you know what? I talked about this earlier on my show. Since Bray Hubbard has come in, he's played 265 snaps. He has the highest grade on the team. He's graded out the highest on the team. It's nothing compared to the snaps that Malachi Moore has played. But Bray Hubbard's playing really well. Lance is like, this bracket is only a guide. Yep, 100%. Yeah, that's all it is. South Carolina is good. That's a good football team. I asked earlier, South Carolina or Colorado, who would win that game? I honestly think it might be South Carolina. It'd be a hell of a game. Yeah, Bray Hubbard. Look, I'll show you guys one more time in case you missed the morning show. look, these are Milroe's overall stats this year, right? 2,200 yards, 608 yards rushing, 32 total touchdowns, rushing attempts 120, right? And then when I looked at like the total, the volume right here, these are the most snaps right here that the players have played. So, for example, Malachi Moore, he's played, if you hover right here where the blue icon is, 659 snaps, and he has a grade of 84.6, which is phenomenal. That is NFL type numbers. Anytime you get into the 80s, that's NFL with a high number of snaps. Total means snaps. Same thing with Deontay Lawson, Jahal Campbell. Look at your inside linebackers. Damani Jackson, this guy's playing phenomenal. Imagine, you know what, you want me to scare you? Imagine Alabama's defense without Damani Jackson. Right? So then I put in the same equation, but I just put the highest graded players. And as you can see, Bray Hubbard, in 235 snaps, he has the highest grade on the team with 90.1. Now, second on the team is 246, and that's Q-Rob, who's out for the season with a grade of 88.8. And then Malachi Moore, as you can see the difference in the volume of snaps, right? I circled Caden Jones and like Zay Mincy because you can't really take a lot from their grade. Like, I don't look at their high grade yet until you had like over 200 snaps. So, I'll be live tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. We can wrap. I'll take you guys' calls. I appreciate you guys being here. This was our score prediction show. Oh, Jack, man, absolutely. Jahar Campbell, I mean, I've been talking about him for a long time. He's playing absolutely the way that I thought he would be playing. Remember, Keanu Coate hit the transfer portal earlier today. Were you guys surprised by that? What were your thoughts? I posted a video with some thoughts. I mean, I'll go over it before I bounce out. But, Keanu Coate, he entered the transfer portal. And it started looking weird when he didn't show up to Baton Rouge, right? The team reporter said that he didn't travel with the team. Then Coach Kalen DeBoer said he was suspended, that he wouldn't play with the team against Mercer. Hey, Bill Miller, what's up, man, with the 1999 Super Chat? Appreciate you. Thank you so much. This season, you only had 5 tackles in 7 games. And I said this earlier on my video, is that the only thing I think about is kind of when Keanu Coate fell on Tyler Van Dyke and Van Dyke got hurt against Wisconsin, right? Poor dude is out for the entire season. In that wolf position right now, I mean, it's pretty much Quay Rusa and Yanze Pierre. And maybe, I guess, Noah Carter gets elevated to number 3. I think a lot of people don't know that Quay is just a redshirt freshman. And same thing with Yanze Pierre. Remember, Q-Rob, like, he was that guy. Quay Rusa has more snaps than Q-Rob, but Q-Rob is that vet, right? You had a lot of depth there. Quay Rusa is like a player, 100%. And so is Yanze. They had that play against Mercer where he kind of flew in the edge, made a tackle in the backfield or tried. It's just wild that, look, no one is safe from the transfer portal. Alabama has 2 guys that have already hit the transfer portal before this season has even ended. Imagine when the season ends. It's going to be crazy. Jaheim Otis, I think the reason that Jaheim Otis left, he was just getting played, like people were playing better than him. Couldn't get back on the field. That's my opinion. Transfer portal giveth and taketh, right? And I think we're kind of in a society of where if you don't play, they leave. So, all right, fam. I'll see you guys back at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Thank you very much for joining me on the show tonight. Hit the thumbs up on these videos. Remember, you can catch all these on podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We have a very active Facebook channel. Just look up same title of Bama Football on YouTube, but on Facebook. Hit us up. I appreciate you guys being here, and we'll catch up with you soon. Coming to you from beautiful Hollywood, Alabama.